सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So we have done till verse number 45, where the student had gone to the teacher and expressed the general concern and how he wants to come out of this samsara. The teacher also assured him, and the last verse that we saw was a very nice verse which says Vedanta Artha Vicharena Jayate Jnanam Uttamam. By contemplating on the teachings of Vedanta, that supreme knowledge of one's own self arises. And through that knowledge, Tena Atyantika Samsara Dukkhanasho Bhavatyano. The sorrows of samsara that one is facing will completely get destroyed. Now, when he says Vedanta Artha Vicharena, so what is Vedanta? The end portion of the Veda is called as Vedanta. And it is Upanishad. Vedanto Nama Upanishad Pramanam. So Vedanta, the proof, or we should say the valid means of knowledge of the self is Vedanta, which is the Upanishads. So the next verse is quoting from an Upanishad. What the master said earlier, by contemplating on Vedanta, one will get the realization of the truth. That the master is substantiating with a quote of the Upanishad. So 46th verse, let us see. Shraddha bhakti dhyana yogan mumukshoho mukter hetun vakti sakshat shruter gihi yo va eteshveva tishthatya mushya moksho vidya kalpita deha bandhat. So he says Shraddha bhakti dhyana yogat mumukshoho. For a mumukshu, Shraddha bhakti, faith, devotion and meditation. Mukter hetu. These are the means for liberation. Bhakti sakshat. Sakshat mukter hetu. This will directly help the person to realize the self. Who says this? Shruter gihi. The Shruti says this. Shruti means the Veda. Yova eteshveva tishtati amushya. Whoever pursues these, moksho avidya kalpita deha bandhat, will get free from the false identification to the body born out of ignorance. So now this is the basic meaning of the verse. Earlier it was said vichar must be done. Vedanta artha vicharena. So vichar there we saw is the steady contemplation and the intuitive knowledge that arises. Here it is, same thing is explained by three means. Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana, Yoga. So from which Upanishad is this? When it is said Shruter Gihi, it is from the Veda, from the Upanishad. So this is from Kaivalya Upanishad. In Kaivalya Upanishad, there is the student who goes to the teacher. Ashwalayana Rishi goes to Brahmaji, the creator himself. So creator himself is the teacher there. And Ashwalayana Rishi is a very great seeker. So when he goes and he approaches the teacher to gain Brahma Vidya, and in reply the teacher says, this is the first line the teacher says is this: Shraddha Bhakti Dhyana Yogad Avaihi. know the truth through Shraddha, Bhakti and Dhyana Yoga. So we have seen this earlier, that what is the importance of Shraddha. Shraddha is here an intellectual quality, the ability to have faith in the existence of that which is not known to the senses. Through logic, through experiential proof of different people who have known the truth, as well as some introspection from our side, a person comes to have conviction that yes, there is this truth, there is Brahman, there is the self. And one also has the faith in the means, the Shastra, the valid means to know the truth. Faith in the teacher and faith in oneself. So as we said earlier, Gurudev said, belief reinforced with conviction is faith. So it's an intellectual quality, the ability of the intellect to know and to retain the truth, that is called faith. Till I don't know the truth, I require faith. Once I know the truth, then faith has transformed into experience. So intellectually, to be very convinced that there is this truth, the scripture is a means, and my true nature also is that self, just that I don't know it right now. So Shraddha is not to believe in something unknown. Shraddha is to believe in something that is not known to me right now because of my ignorance. Not that it doesn't exist, it exists. And it is my true nature. But just because of ignorance, the veil of ignorance, I don't know that right now. And so to gain the knowledge of its existence, to understand the logic, to gain that conviction, so Shraddha is that. Then Bhakti. So if Shraddha is intellectual aspect, Bhakti is the emotional aspect. Where one learns to surrender, where one learns to have love for the Lord, or as was said in Vivek Chudamani, the intensity with which one seeks the self. Swaswarupa anusandhanam bhakti ityabhidhiyate. The intensity and the bhav with which one seeks the self, that this alone is real, nothing else is real, other things are an illusion. And so the intensity with which one does the self-enquiry, to know who am I, and the resultant surrender that comes about, that whatever happens in life, either have the surrender that it is because of some karma of the past, let it go, or have the bhakti towards the Ishvara, that there is the supreme creator, and in his intelligence the creator knows what is the best for me. And so a person learns to accept life as it comes and increase the devotion for that creator, increase love for the creator, because the one who comes with us life after life, who is with us every moment in this life also, is the Lord. So emotions get harnessed to the higher, the intellect gets hooked on to the higher. So intellectual conviction, emotional surrender. If both these happen for the same Lord or the self, then the third one, dhyana, will happen. So dhyana is meditation. So Gurudev used to say that faith and devotion, these are the two wings of the bird, and the bird can fly only when both function properly. So in the Kaivalya Upanishad commentary, Gurudev actually has elaborated this, and there he speaks about how intuition develops. When the head and the heart come together, then the intuition develops, and through that intuition, that yes, I am that self, I am not this body, mind, intellect, one has known the truth. How will that intuition arise? Only when the head and heart come together, and then steady contemplation on the self happens. So dhyan is steady contemplation on the self. Shraddha, bhakti, and then dhyan. These are sequential actually. When I have Shraddha that there is the Lord, then the bhakti will arise for that Lord, as I want to know more about that Lord. When bhakti arises for the Lord, then I want to be one with that Lord through the Dhyana Yoga. So to steadily think about the Lord, think about the self, that is the means. And so for a mumukshu, these three are very, very crucial. Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana, Yoga, Mumukshoho. Mukter hetun Bhakti Sakshat Shrutir Kihi. So the Shruti is giving this uh, instruction to the seeker that cultivate these three. The fourfold qualifications was already told earlier that one should cultivate these fourfold qualifications. Now the Shruti here is, the quotation of the Upanishad is used to emphasize these two. This is what specifically the teacher is telling the student, that don't worry, you will get this freedom from the sorrow that you are facing. And it is your imagination of ignorance, avidya kalpitat. How strange it is that we are being teased by our own false imagination. When I don't know who am I, then I'm imagining myself to be the body, mind, intellect, this Mr. So and so, this entity. And that projection is what is causing all the sorrow. So he says freedom from that, mokshaha, avidya kalpita deha bandha. This body identification is an imagination or a projection of ignorance. So to be free from that, you can use what the scripture is saying, the Vedas are saying, Shraddha, Bhakti and Jnana Yoga. So now when the teacher has given this kind of an assurance, one more verse of assurance. So these are different verses. If we see in Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya ji has taken his poetic flights and elaborated, because in Upanishads, commentaries, there's a limitation. One cannot write one word extra. While explaining the mantras of the Upanishad, the commentaries which are written, one has to be very precise. Here it's his own composition. There is no limitation like that. So he has taken very many different verses. Sometimes to convey a similar idea, 2-3 verses are taken. So here, once having said this, the next verse again he speaks about an analogy of the fire. Ajnana yogat paramatmanastava yanatma bandhastata eva samsritihi tayor vivekodita bodhavanhihi ajnana karyam pradahet samulam. So he says, Ajnana Yogat, that ignorance because of which this whole samsara is caused. If you remember that cycle of ignorance that we did, ignorance of the self leads to false identification that I am the body, mind, intellect, which makes us feel incomplete. When we feel incomplete, we have different vasanas to want to become complete. So vasanas create desires in the intellect, thought agitations in the mind, actions at the body level, results which come to us, but they are temporary, so they further strengthen the vasana. This entire cycle, and the jiva is bound in this cycle, thinking of oneself as a limited jiva, as a karta, as a bhokta. So the root cause is ignorance and rest of it is the effects. So he says, Ajnana yogat paramatmanastava. You have forgotten that you are that Paramatma. Anatma bandhat tada eva samsriti. And then bound by this anatma, then there is samsriti, there is fall. One suffers. Tayor vivekodita bodhavanni. In the fire of knowledge rising through vivek. So Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana Yoga or Vivek, both one can use, either one can use. So the knowledge that arises through this clear discrimination that I am not the body, I am the self, the world is not real, it is an illusion. What will that knowledge do? What will that fire do? Ajnana karyam pradahet samulam. It will burn away completely the ignorance along with all the effects, meaning the whole ignorance cycle will be destroyed. So here it is, the earlier the verse focus was on Shraddha and Bhakti and Dhyan Yoga. Here the focus is on Vivek. That how a person through constant Vivek discrimination that I am not the body, I am the Sakshi, I am not the Jiva, I am the Sakshi. Constantly one has to have that bhav, that attitude. Through that, the fire of knowledge that arises. This example is there even in the Gita, the fire. A spark is enough to burn the entire pile of hay. Huge piles of hay can be burned by just one spark of fire. Yathaidhamsi samidhogni bhasmasat kurute yatha. How this one spark of fire can burn the entire haystack. In the same way, this fire of knowledge that arises through this Dhyana Yoga, through this constant Vivek. So at two levels, one has to practice this. At the transactional level, when I am working in the day-to-day world, I have to have the attitude that I am the Sakshi of the Jiva. So Mr. So-and-so is acting like this, reacting like this, responding like this, perceiving like this. So I'm observing myself only. In quantum physics, they call it as observing the observer. So the observer and the actor, these are two different aspects in me. In each individual, there are these two. One is the observer who doesn't do anything, who is akarta, abhokta, that is the self. Another is the karta, bhokta, which is the actor who is doing everything. So day-to-day life, one has to apply this Vivek, that I am the observer. As much as one can come to that in a day, one has to keep practicing that. And then in the moments of meditation, when one has withdrawn from all activity, there the attitude is steady contemplation that I am Brahman, and that alone exists. This both are very complementary to each other. Steady meditation and contemplation, as well as this Sakshi Bhav. Because the more I remain as a Sakshi, the less the mind gets impacted and affected. Easier it is for me to detach from it in the state of meditation. And the more I detach in meditation, my bhava as a Sakshi that yes, I am a Sakshi, I am not this, gets strengthened. And so both these one has to practice together. And the resultant fire that arises because of this, that fire will burn ignorance and all the effects. Meaning once and for all, one will be free. It is not a relief. It is not that ignorance can come back again. So when it says ajnana karyam pradahet samulam, with the root cause, it will be completely destroyed. Not destroying one effect. That okay, anger is there, now I destroy anger, then I destroy passion, I destroy greed. It won't work like that, one by one. We may learn to control these so that the mind becomes quieter. But ultimately one has to destroy this root cause. The ignorance has to be destroyed fully. So now these few verses are the assurance of the teacher. That don't worry, there is a solution. There is Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana Yoga, there is Vedanta Vichar, there is the fire born out of Vivek. And all these are connected to each other. So the student is assured that yes, there is a solution, don't worry. It is not a helpless situation. Though it appears to be like that, it is not like that. Now the disciple asks specific questions which are causing the sorrow. And the quest that he has in him, that is what he comes to express. Shishya uvacha kripaya shruyatam swamin Prashnoyam kriyate maya yaduttaramaham shrutva kritarthasyam bhavanmukhat. So he goes, he approaches the teacher saying with humility, saying, Kripaya Shruyatam Swamin. O Master, please listen to me. Prashnoyam kriyate maya. Some questions will be presented by me. Yaduttaramaham shrutva. By gaining the answers, by listening to those answers from you, Bhavan Mukhat, Kritarthasyam, I will be fulfilled. So the teacher is asked these questions now. The attitude of the student is of devotion, of surrender, of humility, where he says, please listen to me, the question that I have, and I will feel very fulfilled and satisfied when I listen to the answers from you. Now, these questions of the student, these are not questions which are borrowed questions or questions for the sake of showing one's intellectual achievements and knowledge, or these are not questions to test the teacher. These are questions born out of his thinking and feeling, that this is what I am feeling and I want to know what is the solution to this. Earlier he has not expressed the specific questions. The cause of sorrow in samsara can be many things. Somebody can be miserable in samsara because of lack of, some desire is not fulfilled. So lack of money is there, or lack of somebody who is loving me is there, or somebody whom I loved has betrayed me. So many causes for misery in samsara can be there, and one can be tossed about by agitations. And one has gone to the teacher, and the teacher also has assured the student that there is the solution to the root cause. When the student has heard this from the teacher, the student gets more assurance that yes, I have come to a teacher who will be able to help me out. So let me open up with more specific questions. This is the attitude which a student will have generally. Even the Gita, if you see, in the whole first chapter, Arjun gave lot of logic and reasons why he should not fight, and he was dejected and doesn't want to do this, and he throws away bow and arrow, comes down at the feet of Krishna and cries. Then in the second verse, in the second chapter, Bhagavan whips him out, saying that this doesn't befit you. Get up, do your duty, give up the weakness of the heart. One or two justifications Arjun again gives. Earlier his justifications were society is going to get destroyed, gender ratio will get disturbed, forefathers will get affected, ahimsa is a better policy, so much of loss will happen. All those excuses he gave, very, very general. Then when Bhagavan whips him out of his problem, out of his attachment, he expresses his problem, saying that, see, basically there are these two people whom I am very attached to. Katham Bhishma Maham Sankhye Dronam Cha Madhusudana. Ishubhi Pratiyotshyami. Pujarha Varisudana. These two people, Bhishma and Drona, they are so, they are someone whom I revere. In dream also I cannot say abusive language and I cannot use bad words against them. You are telling me to kill them in the waking state. How is it possible? So now he has expressed his issue mainly. Generally he was trying to say that so many things about society. Then he comes to two, Bhishma and Drona. These are my main attachments. And then he comes to more specific aspect where he says that Now I have got completely confused. What is dharma and what is adharma? You please guide me. That is a specific query where he says, I am surrendering to you. I am ready to follow your instruction. You please guide me because I am not capable of discriminating. So from a general thing to little more specific to absolutely specific, the student moves in the progression of their evolution. Same way here is the student saying, generally I am suffering in samsara, and how the teachers teaches and how the teacher assures the student, through that the student gets more confidence and gets more strength and says, okay, now this is my specific issue. Please address this, please help me with this. So these next questions that he asks, 7 questions he asks, these 7 questions are answered by the teacher. The whole text of Vivek Chudamani is a reply now to these 7 questions. These questions are in a way general questions also that the student has asked about bondage, liberation, etc., which can apply to all of us, as well as they are a specific question that the student has asked the teacher that I want to understand, I want to know. I am suffering, but I don't even know what is the cause of my sorrow. The teacher has said, yes, Ajnana is the root cause. Removal of that is possible by this. But the student now specifically wants to know about bondage, from where it comes and all that. So now these 7 questions, they are to be taken not only as questions, but they are to be taken as a quest of the student. And this beauty here is in Vedanta, there is this freedom to question. One can ask any question pertinent to one's own life, evolution, creation, all that. One doesn't have to believe just because the Shruti is saying that, just because an answer is given. So the student and the teacher, they have that rapport. The teacher also has that open-mindedness to encourage the student to question. And the student also has thought through the questions. So these questions are also very beautifully put by the student. They are not some question which just is to handle the effect. That, okay, how do I learn to live a better life in this world? How can my relationship be more harmonious? How can I apply Vedanta to improve my performance, productivity, efficiency? No. They are well thought out, deep questions, which only the teacher of Vedanta will be able to answer. So when he has gone to such a teacher, the question also that he asks a teacher is befitting the stature of the teacher, where the teacher's knowledge can be specifically used to remove this ignorance, not some general thing to make life better. So now let us see what are those questions. Gurudev used to tell us that memorize this verse. So 49th verse, 7 questions in this. Ko nama bandhaha kathamesha agataha katham pratisthasya katham vimokshaha ko savanatma paramakka atma tayor viveka kathametadutyatam. So now he says, what are these questions? Ko nama bandhaha. First question, what is bondage? Kathamesha agataha, from where did it come? Katham pratisthasya, what is that which is sustaining it? Katham vimokshaha, how to be free from it? I have heard that there is something called Atma. So who is this Atma? Ko asau Atma. Ko asau Anatma. What is this Anatma? The not self. And I have heard about this Atma. This Atma is supreme. So what is this supreme Atma? Paramakka Atma. Tayor Viveka Katham. And how to distinguish between Atma and Anatma? etaducyatam. Please tell me about this. So what are the 7 questions? Ko nama bandha. What is bondage? Kathamesha agata. From where did it come? Katham pratisthasya. From where is it? How is it sustained? Katham vimoksha. What is freedom from bondage? Kosavanatma. What is anatma? Paramakka atma. What is the supreme atma? Tayor viveka katham. How to distinguish between both these? Please tell me about this. This second one, the Kosavanatma, Paramakka Atma is considered as one question. So, Konama Bandha, Kathamesh Agata, Katham Pratisthasya, Katham Vimoksha, Kosavanatma, Paramakka Atma, Tayor Viveka, Kathameta Duchata. Sorry, 7, not 8. So, 4 are about bondage and 3 are about Atma. So now when he says this Konama Bandha, so this question can be, we should take this question at 2 different levels. One is the simple level, which we can apply in our sadhana, and other is a deeper level of Advaita Vedanta. So at a simple level of sadhana, what do we do? Ko nama bandha. What is bondage? What is that which I feel right now is binding me? See, these questions are not just intellectual questions. As we said earlier, this is born out of the feeling of the student as well as the sincerity with which the student is seeking solution for these. So the student, when he says, what is bondage? He's not trying to understand bondage. Okay, there is something called bondage. Let me think about it. Let me know about it. It's not an objective quest. It is a subjective quest. Something is binding me. I feel bound. I feel like how a person feels. If one is tied up, one will feel bound, restricted. I can't make movements. In that way, what is that which is today binding me? One can ask that question because ignorance is the root cause of bondage. Till we come to even feel that I don't know the self and that is the root cause of my sorrow and that's why I feel bound. There are so many things at the daily life, personal level that we feel bound by, which are the cause of, which are our subjective limitations. I can feel bound by greed, I can feel bound by anger, I can feel bound by wandering of the mind, some attachment I have developed towards a certain object, certain people. So, ko nama bandha, one can identify and note down what is that which makes me feel shackled. which does not allow me to live my life to my full potential. Sometimes I don't even know what is my full potential. That itself is bondage. So ko nama bandha, from where, what is this bondage? Is that something which I even feel bound by? Many times one doesn't even feel bondage. One just feels life is going on. What we need is there. Sometimes it will not be there, but it's okay. Life just goes on. So one doesn't even feel that bondage, that there is something which is binding me. My mind is limited by this bondage. My potential doesn't manifest because of this bondage. One feels suffocated because of this bondage. Some subjective weakness, some attachment. What is that bondage? So, konama bandha. Then kathamesha agata. From where did it come? Intellect always wants to know what is the cause of anything. Like Gurudev used to say, causation hunting is a preoccupation of the intellect. So from where did this bondage come? Sometimes we have cultivated that in our life by our actions. Sometimes we don't know the cause, that why am I feeling like this? Why am I feeling insecure? Why am I feeling attached? Why am I feeling jealous? Sometimes we know that, okay, it has been because of these incidents and how I have fueled it. So now it is binding me. Sometimes we don't know from where it comes. So the intellect always wants to know from where it comes, meaning it is trying to know the cause so that if I remove it, then the effect will go. So konama bandha, what is that which binds me? From where has it come? How is it sustained? Any negativity or any limitation or any shackle that is there on my personality is sustained by my constant renewal, by the attention that I pay to it, by encouragement that I give to it. Like a simple example of anger. Somebody told me something which was hurting, and I'm very angry at that person. That person said and went away. But every time I think of that person or that incident, again and again, I replay it in my whole mind. And it fuels that anger more and more and more. Because I'm renewing it, I'm encouraging it. Like you have nowadays, no, this prepaid. We have to put the recharge every time. After a few months, after a few days, the plan gets over. Again, we have to charge it. So we are recharging our mind. So where is it? How is it sustained? How is it that I am fueling that? What is it that I am doing which is not allowing it to just die out? Because by itself, thought is perishable. It just comes and goes. If I don't renew it, it will not sustain. It will just die. It's like watering a plant. If I don't water the plant, it will just die. So if I don't fuel that anger, if I don't fuel a particular limitation that I have, it may be anything, getting up late, procrastination, any such thing. Anger, jealousy, insecurity, dependency on certain habits. These are sustained by our constant encouragement. So till a person doesn't stop encouraging these, one cannot get out. So I have to know from what are the things that I am doing which is sustaining this bondage. One may want to lose weight. One may feel bound that, oh, okay, my health is not good because the weight has been increasing tremendously. From where did this come? Steadily I've been putting on. Maybe because of lack of exercise, maybe genetic issues, anything. How is it sustained? By my constantly putting efforts to sustain it. If I don't cut down on food which is going to increase my weight, on carbohydrates and on fat, on milk, so many things like that, then that person will keep putting on weight. Katham pratisthasya. What is that which sustains this bondage? And katham vimoksha, how will I get out of this? First of all, do I want to also get out of this? That is an important aspect. Do I feel, or I just think now and then, okay, I must get out of it. If that is weak, then I won't get out of it. So what is that desire for freedom from that particular limitation? Is it strong? Is it intense? Do I really want to get out of it? Sometimes the mind enjoys it. One part of the mind enjoys, one part of the mind is wanting to get out of it. And the part which enjoys with the part which indulges, if that is stronger, in spite of all the knowledge, everything, one will still indulge, and then one will feel guilty after that. And when one feels guilty, then one starts condemning oneself, one doesn't like oneself. So when one does that, self-condemnation, guilt, to feel better, then one will again go and indulge. So that's why it's a downward spiral. Each one is fueling the other. The guilt is fueling, the indulgence is fueling the guilt is fueling the indulgence. So this is a part of understanding that how bondage is sustained. How is this habit being sustained? Even though I know people who want to smoke, people who want to get rid of smoking, for some time they will have control. Again, they fall into that. Again, they smoke. Again, they feel bad. Again, they come back. But then it makes them feel low about themselves. Again, they go back to smoking. This goes on. So one has to observe this pattern, that how is this bondage sustained, and do I really want to get out of it? Then the Pratipaksha Bhavana has to be done. Then the feeling that yes, I want to get out of this bondage must become very, very strong. So Katham Vimoksha, do I want moksha, and how will I get freedom from this? So at one level, we can apply these questions to our daily transactional life and identify what all are those things which bind us. How is it coming? From where is it coming? How is it sustained? How will I be free from this? Then the fourth, these are four. Then the fifth one, Kosa Anatma. What is that which is Anatma? Not self. Paramakka Atma. And what is the supreme self? And Tayor Viveka Katham Eta Duchatam. Tell me how to distinguish between these two. Again, these three questions can be taken at our sadhana level. That what is it that I am doing which is not my nature, which is paradharma. Like Arjun, he wanted to run away from the battlefield. He wanted to go sit in the forest and meditate. That is anatma for him. That is paradharma for him, because it is not his temperament. And paramakka atma, the adapted meaning of that is, what is that which is my nature? What is my temperament? Arjun's temperament is to be a protector, to be a leader. He is hot-blooded person. He cannot sit quietly and meditate. So for him to follow that swadharma of his as a kshatriya, that is very important. So what is my nature and what is not my nature? A person sometimes is a very simple introverted person, content by oneself, happy, maybe few friends, bas. For some reason, one feels that no, I should be outgoing, I should have more friends, I should socialize, I should have more people, following me on social media and all that. If genuinely one's nature is transforming to come to that, then that's a good thing. But if it is not, it is because of some comparison I'm doing, or somebody told me and they are pushing me to do it, then I'm going away from what is my nature. Kaikeyi's nature was to love Ram, and she actually loved Ram tremendously. But mantra instigated her, and for those few moments, she was so disturbed. The whole Ramayana started, and she made such a scene because she went out of her nature. And she regretted it so much as soon as Ram left. And she went to bring Ram back. So repentant she was, because she went out of her nature. So in life, we go many times out of our swadharma, out of our nature, for various reasons, influences which come to us. How to distinguish what is my nature and what is not my nature? The last question is that. Because in a given situation, it will appear very justified. Like Arjun's going away into the forest is very justified. Anybody else in the place of Krishna would have said, yes, what you are saying is correct. You should not fight the war, go. So how to distinguish that is a very subtle line. What is swadharma, what is paradharma, what is dharma, what is adharma? When Arjun says that it is better they kill me than I fight them. It is better that I stay in the forest begging alms. It appears dharma because killing is adharmic. And peace and non-violence is dharmic. from a given universal standpoint. But given that special situation there and duty of Arjuna as a Kshatriya, he has to kill adharmic forces. Now, how to know what is dharma and what is adharma and the distinction between these two? So, what is Atma, what is Anatma, what is my nature, what is not my nature, what is dharma, what is adharma? So, one wants to know that. So, this is the adapted level in our daily life, one has to discriminate. What is bondage, what is, from where it comes, how is it sustained, how to get free from it. And when I'm bound, that is one of the reasons why I go out of my nature. What is the temptation which makes me go out of my nature? What is my true nature? How do I come back to it? How do I distinguish between what is not mine, what is mine as my nature? So this is at a level where we can apply these questions. One can think about, identify whatever binds me, and then strive to get out of it. And that at deeper level, the same questions, that what is bondage? What is it that is the root cause of bondage is what the student will be asking. That he is not understanding. Maybe the mind is only stuck with a few secondary causes of sorrow. So he wants to know what is really bondage. See, till we come to Vedanta, we don't realize that not knowing the self and thinking that I am the body is the cause of bondage, is the root cause of bondage, is what really binds me. And even when we come to Vedanta, we may learn this, but we don't feel that Dehatma Bhav is the cause of bondage. We don't feel. But the question that the student is asking is born out of that feeling. Though the teacher has said earlier, the student is expressing the specific doubt here because he feels that what is this bondage? Not able to pinpoint clearly, but there is some deeper cause of this bondage because of which I am feeling so limited. So what is bondage? Ko nama bandha. Kathamesha agata. From where did this come? Even if we say ignorance is the root cause of bondage, the question we will generally have, from where did this ignorance come? Or expressed in a different way, if today's life is the cause, is the effect of the earlier lives, which is the cause, which is the first birth, from where did this start? So, Kathamesha agata, from where did it come? What was that which was there before this bondage? So one wants to know, from where did this bondage come? Especially if we say that this whole thing is an illusion, it doesn't even exist, then one wants to know, how did it start? Natural question always. What is bondage? From where did it come? What is sustaining this? How is this bondage sustained? The body identification sustained? Ego sustained? One wants to know the whole mechanism of what is that which is sustaining this bondage. Is it because of the Lord's Maya that this bondage is sustained, and only when he withdraws then we will get out of it? What is that cause? How is this bondage sustained? And how to get free from this bondage? So I want to know what is the root cause, the origin of the root cause, the sustenance of this root cause, and the elimination of this root cause. From where did all these from? These are the questions that the student is asking. And the student has heard also these words, Atma, Anatma, all these. So the student is asking that what is this Anatma, not self? And Paramakka Atma, and what is the supreme self? We have heard these words, Atma, Anatma, Ishvara, Jiva, Brahman. But what do these mean? And here the question that he is asking is, I am not feeling that there is an Anatma, because right now this Anatma is only considered as Atma, that I am this. So if I am this and you are saying this is Anatma, then what is that Supreme Atma? So the student wants to know specifically that what is Anatma, what is Atma, and not intellectually. Okay, Anatma means everything other than you. Atma means you. That's a word meaning. The literal meaning of the word Atma is I. Meaning of Anatma is not I. Whatever is not I, whatever can be called as that is Anatma, and whatever is I is Atma. Now, this is a literal meaning that the student would have got anywhere. He would have opened any book, would understand. But again, this question is at the deeper level where one wants to experience, one wants to know. Today, Atma is considered as Anatma, Anatma is considered as Atma. It's got mixed up, and hence he is asking the last question, that how to distinguish between these two. Because it's not an outside discrimination. It is not like we separate stones from the rice. The person who is separating is not involved, not the rice or the stone, is different from them. So he's easily able to distinguish, okay, this is rice, this is stone. Here we have mixed up I and not I. So now how to segregate these two? What is Atma and what is Anatma? So these are questions, 7 questions that the teacher is asked, specific questions, which we can apply both at our sadhana transactional level as well as at a deeper level of the clarity of understanding of Advaita Vedanta, and then application of it to remove this bondage. So for today, we will stop here, and any questions anybody has, welcome to ask.
Swamiji, I just want to understand that this Atmanatma Vivek is told in Gita.
Told in?
By Lord as a Swadharma Paradharma. ये आत्म अनात्म विवेक को ही भगवान ने गीता में क्या स्वधर्म और परधर्म से समझाया है?
So the word Swadharma and Paradharma can be used for both. See, in the Gita, when Bhagavan uses Swadharma, he doesn't use Swadharma for Atma and Anatma. He uses Swadharma for the temperament of the individual. So when he says Swadharme Nidhanam Shreya Paradharma Bhayavaha, it is better to die in one's own Swadharma. The dharma of the other, Paradharma, is fraught with fear. There he is speaking about temperament. He is speaking about the essential nature of Arjun in terms of the personality. His Swadharma is a Kshatriya Swadharma. His Swadharma is not a Swadharma to meditate. Sannyasi Swadharma is not his. So there it is more at the mind level. But in some context, it can also be used that Swa means one's own, Dharma means nature. So what is one's own nature? One's own nature is Atma, and one's own, the Anatma is Paradharma. So the word by itself lends itself to both the meanings. But in the Gita specifically, Bhagavan uses the word Swadharma only for temperament. He doesn't use it for Atma and Anatma. So for that, the commentators use the word Swarupa Dharma. So when Arjun asks the question that Karpanya dosho pahata svabhava prachami tvam dharma sammudha cheta, that I am confused about dharma, there the commentators give both these meanings, that he is confused about his swadharma, that should he fight or not fight, and is also confused about his swarupa dharma, that who is he in reality. And so the distinction is made between swadharma and swarupa dharma. But that is done by the commentators. In the Gita specifically, Bhagavan uses Swadharma only for temperament of the mind.
Temperament.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Swamiji.
These 7 questions also what we have done them at a simpler level for us to understand our, from where we are to evolve. The question that the student is asking is only at Vedantic level. Okay, what is bondage? What is Atma? What is Anatma? We are taking at our sadhana level to find out what is that which is binding me at this moment. Because maybe that I don't find that identification with the body is the cause of my bondage. At this level of evolution, I don't feel that is the cause of my bondage. That may be possible. So then what is that which makes me feel bound? I have to work on those and eliminate those to come to this deeper level of bondage. So we have taken it at a simpler level also.
Thank you.
Okay, so we stop for here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.